In today's story, a father and his 12-year-old son go for a hike in the Utah wilderness. But as they are hiking, they realize that they are completely lost. The sun starts to set and the freezing cold temperatures set in. And all of a sudden, the father realizes that this could be his last night with his son. But before we get into that story, if you enjoyed today's video, I would ask you to invite the like button to your next prayer gathering. Do not lift your hands off him until he is fully blessed. And I want to welcome you to the Witness Files, where we tell true stories of danger, mystery, and events that only God can explain. Let's jump into today's story. It's February 16th, 2025, and Julian Hernandez and his 12-year-old son go for a hike in the Utah Red Mountains near Snow Canyon State Park. They were very excited for this hike. They wanted to get some father and son bonding time. They wanted to get some fresh air, some beautiful views, and maybe even get into a little adventure. And as soon as this hike starts, it is a phenomenal day, and it is going just as they had hoped it would. Julian is pointing out the different wildlife that he sees. He's pointing out the rock formations. His son is running ahead. He's laughing. They're having a great time. If you were to pass by, you could hear the excitement in their voices bouncing off the canyons. But the thing is, in the Utah wilderness, if you do not come completely prepared, it can turn fatal very quickly. And this is exactly what Julian realizes, because as they're walking, something just doesn't feel right in his body. He's walking and he starts to notice that every time he goes around a curve, every time he goes around a bend, everything just looks the same. And it just hits him like a ton of bricks. I am completely lost. And he notices the sun starting to set. And the thing about the Utah wilderness is that as the sun goes down, so do the temperatures. And not long from now, it is going to be below freezing. And remember how I told you, if you do not come prepared in the Utah wilderness, it can be fatal. Well, this is exactly what is happening to Julian and his son. Because you see, they had ran out of water, they ran out of food, and they forgot the most vital thing that they needed. And that was blankets and a tent. But not only this, he realizes that he doesn't have cell service, he doesn't have a GPS, and one of the scariest thoughts as a father enter into his head, and he realizes that he cannot protect his son from the danger that is ahead of them. And so he and his son are trying to figure out, what are they going to do? How are they going to survive this night? And so the first thing they try is they cuddle together. They try to get that body temperature up by holding each other, and that's not really working. So he has another idea. Maybe if we start to walk, then our body temperatures will raise. And he realizes very quickly with this plan that there's a lot of dangerous animals in these woods. Not only that, it is a slippery slope, and one fall could tragically hurt them. And so they stop again. They're holding each other. They're trying to figure out what to do. And that's when Julian notices something on the ledge of the mountain about 50 yards away. And so he looks to his son and he tells his son, hey, we need to go check this out. We need to go see what this is. And so he and his son start to walk towards it. As they're getting closer and closer, this glimmer of hope starts to come into Julian, because he's starting to recognize and think he knows what's up there. They're 10 yards away. They're 5 yards away. And he realizes what's laying on that ridge. And what is laying on that ridge is a backpack. So he immediately sprints. He gets down. He opens up that backpack, and it has to be the biggest surprise of his life. But before we look at what's in the backpack, I want to talk about why that backpack was even there. You see, about 6 weeks earlier, a kid named Levi Dittman, he was 15 years old, and he was hiking on the same trails that Julian and his son was hiking. And all of a sudden, he realized, just like Julian, that he was lost. Now, the backpack he was carrying was very heavy. He didn't know if he could get out of the woods before sunset with this backpack, and so he has to make the hard decision. And he decides to drop that backpack so that he can have lighter weight on him and get out as fast as he possibly can. Now let's jump back to Julian and his son. He opens that backpack and he starts to pull the contents out. The first thing he pulls out is water, and he's super excited about that. They're able to have more water. Then he pulls out snacks and he's like, thank goodness, I was starving. But the next thing he pulled out would be the very thing that could possibly save his and his son's life. And what he pulls out are these massive wool blankets that is going to keep them warm overnight. And so he looks at his son and he's like, all right, I think we can do this. Let's huddle up. Let's put these blankets around us and let's go in and try to make it through this night. Now, Julian would later say that this had to be the hardest night of his life. His son continues to pray to God that God would save them, that God would spare them, get them through that night. Julian kept repeating, just one more hour, just one more hour, just one more hour. He knew that every hour that went down was 1 hour closer to survival. And what he did not realize is that when he and his son did not come out of the woods, his wife would begin to get very scared. And so she called the police and she called a rescue team. And so this rescue team had been combing the mountain all night looking for Julian and his son. So it is about 5 a.m. and Julian's like, it's so close. We're almost there. And then the sun starts to peak up and is going into the sky. And Julian is realizing, hey, we might actually survive this. And that's when they hear something in the distance. And this noise starts to get closer and closer. And this noise sounds like, "Tw, tw, 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 tw." And as they look up, they see this helicopter coming into the clearing, and they realize that they are going to be safe. So this helicopter gets them and takes them to safety. Now, Julian and his son are just absolutely amazed by the miracle that happened, that this backpack was up there. But remember, the backpack was left by Levi Dittman. Now, I didn't tell you whether he made it out alive or not, but by a miracle, Levi was able to make it out of these woods. So we have two different stories on one trail. Both sets of people got lost, and both sets of people miraculously made it out of the wilderness. The amazing thing about this story is how Julian and his son has constantly given praise to God. You see, they have said time and time again that it was God who left that backpack on that ledge. It was God who protected that backpack. Because you see, it was 6 weeks that backpack sat there. Anybody could have came by and took it. Anybody could have came and taken some of the stuff out of it. An animal could have smelled the food and attacked the backpack, taken it off. Wind could have moved it. Anything could have happened to that backpack. But that backpack made it the 6 weeks, and it sat there for Julian and his son. And they have not stopped giving the glory to God. And what I want you to see from this video is that that is who our God is. He's the God of miracles. He's the God who provides for us. There's no way Levi could have known that the fact that he got lost was the reason these two people were saved. And he could have never imagined the ramifications of leaving that backpack on that ledge. But you see, God knew exactly what he was doing, and he gave them exactly what they needed to survive. And the other thing I want you to see about God in this story is that Julian and his son clung to each other, and they clung to prayer to get through this night. And even in your darkest moments, at the hardest points of your life, you need to cling to God because he hears you, he sees you, and he's with you. Our God never leaves us, and he always provides for us.